Okay, welcome everyone to Buddhist Center. It's so lovely to be here with all of you tonight. Talk about Lama Tsongkhapa's foundation of all good qualities, source of all my good. This incredible text of just 14 stanzas that shows us exactly how to go from our state, from our condition of suffering and all kinds of dissatisfaction to the state of complete enlightenment, to the state of Buddhahood, where we're able to be the most reliable guide in the universe with perfect love, compassion, wisdom, power, skillful means, all of those attributes, all of those qualities, the excellent qualities of body, speech, and mind, and enlightened activities of a Buddha. We'll be able to be the possessor of those qualities. We will be able to discover the same thing that the Buddha discovered by relying upon kind of a cheat sheet that the Buddha came to show us. So luckily, we don't have to try to figure this out just as Buddha did, in the sense of, having, to discover these things within his mind through, negating various teachings and so forth that he found insufficient. Luckily, he came here with a playbook for us, a playbook, an instruction manual that shows us exactly how to become Buddhas and how to do it from this very state that we're in right now. We don't have to transcend this state. It's from this very state right now, with this very mind that we have right now, that we can go from a place of dissatisfaction to a place of perfect happiness, to a place where we never have to suffer again, because we know that nirvana has a beginning and no end. Samsara has no beginning but has an end. Because samsara is something that's caused, if we remove the causes of samsara, if we remove those things that give rise to the dissatisfactory states that we have, then we will not have to experience those dissatisfactory states. And we know that everything that's impermanent has a cause. We can't find any phenomena that is impermanent that doesn't have a cause. And likewise, our happiness and our suffering, both of these states of being have causes. And what we need to try to figure out how to do is to perfect our states of virtue, perfect those things which give rise to states of happiness, so we can then have perfect states of happiness. So none of these explanations or instructions that Buddha came to give were things that he said, hey, just believe this because I said it. These were very logical things that can be proven when we start to use reasoning to see if the way things appear to us tally with reality, and to see if the way that Buddha presented things tally with reality from a logical perspective. And once we've done what the Buddha has asked us to do, that is cut and rub the teachings, analyze the teachings, make sure that the teachings are accurate from your own perspective, something that you can discover yourself, and then and only then follow this path. So the Buddha was not someone who said, just believe this because I'm omniscient and I've discovered something. The Buddha said, I've discovered something that you can discover, and therefore I have come here to give you this most useful information. So 2,600 years ago, Buddha Shakyamuni came to our world with so much love and compassion, and was so kind to share with us exactly what he had discovered, and share with us exactly how to remove the afflictive obstructions that keep us in samsara, and how to remove the obstructions to omniscience, or the cognitive obscurations that keep us from perfect wisdom, perfect love and compassion, perfect power, etc., that the Buddha experiences 24/7, 7 days a week, accompanied with a perfect bliss, because the Buddha has recognized that loving all sentient beings without bias and being completely capable to work for their needs is what causes a state of bliss in a sentient, in a being. And the sentient beings are beings that have not discovered the final state of Buddhahood yet. And we are among those beings, but we're lucky in some ways because, we are among the beings who have been presented with this truth that can then do something with it. And we have some, because of the causes and conditions that came together just perfectly at this moment, when we look at the the uncountable, incalculable causes and conditions that must occur in order to give us our present condition, to give us our present house, and to give us everything that we have around us. And then couple that with the opportunity to study Dharma, the opportunity to learn how to get rid of suffering. All we ever do is try to get rid of suffering, and it never works out because we've never applied the antidote to the problem. We've never known exactly what we needed to do to get rid of suffering. So we've kind of thrown darts towards a target when we've never, ever hit the exact target. And therefore, we've been in cyclic existence. And that exact target is the wisdom that recognizes the lack of inherent existence of all phenomena. And we haven't recognized that the cap on our happiness and the change of our happiness into suffering that keeps occurring, and the fact that we don't have perfect happiness is not only because we have this ignorance that grasps at things as being inherently existent, but we also have this attitude that cherishes ourselves more than others and doesn't love others, doesn't have compassion for others. So once we can remove these states, we remove the self-grasping ignorance that sees things as inherently existent, that binds us to cyclic existence, we don't have to suffer. And if we can then couple that with the removal of the self-cherishing attitude at its subtlest level, then that not only allows us to not suffer, but gets rid of the stains of the kind of ignorance and the self-cherishing attitude, gets rid of the subtle self-cherishing attitude that keeps like a glaze over our ability to really see reality at all times, both in the conventional perspective and ultimate perspective simultaneously. And this will be required if we want to work for the sake of all sentient beings in a complete way. Our mind will need to be able to flow to all sentient beings. Our mind will have to be able to not only flow to them, but know what to do for them. And our mind won't flow if we don't have complete love and compassion that's unbiased for all sentient beings. And even if we do have that love and compassion, if we don't have wisdom, we won't really know how to help them. And we have to have really all of these attributes, all of these qualities that are put together through many, many, many causes and many, many collections that allow us to then be the most reliable guide in the universe through getting rid of the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. So there's a lot of words in there, but they all mean so much. And I beg you all, if you want to become happier and happier, if you want to have a sense of ease that is lasting and that increases more and more, and a sense of ease that you can see coming to a greater and greater extent if you continue to create causes, if you could continue to study and you look at these things and you look at the logical analysis, the logical presentation that the Buddha gave us to show us exactly what we need to do, we'll be inspired and we'll see that our experience tallies with what the Buddha said could be discovered. We won't have to just rely upon some words or some pictures or some deities or some sort of creator that's in charge. We're the creator that's in charge. Our mind is the creator of all the things around us. All of our experiences, all the coloring on the situations, whether we suffer or don't suffer is all dependent upon one thing. And it's not external, it's internal, it's our mind. And the Buddha has shown us and been so kind to come to show us how to change that very thing, which will change every experience that we have, from the kind that we have now, which is plagued with the suffering, the suffering of change, and the pervasive compounded suffering, to a place where those things are extinguished forever. And to a place, if we then have love and compassion and altruism and want to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings and engage in that path, will become that exact Buddha that we are talking about, that is able to work for the sake of all sentient beings. We'll be able to truly, truly know what beings need and know how to help them. So now what we're going to do before we get started with the teaching is we're going to imagine that we can do that right now, that we can be of the most benefit to all sentient beings. We know that what we need is to learn exactly how to get rid of suffering and exactly how to achieve the highest states of happiness that are possible. And we know that every single sentient being in the universe just tries day and night, whether they're a worm or they're me, to try to have a little happiness, try to have a little comfort, try to eat a little more dung, try to eat a little more pizza, just trying, and striving to try to have happiness in some way that just keeps changing into suffering and changing into suffering. So we're here tonight to try to learn about how to have happiness, how to create the causes for happiness. And every single sentient being in the universe wishes to have happiness and the causes of happiness. And we're here tonight to learn how to not have suffering. And every single sentient being in the universe wishes to not have suffering. Animals seek shelter. You even see, when a larger fish is, coming after a smaller fish, they hide. We know that every single being that we can observe wants to be free from suffering. And here we are tonight learning exactly how to achieve those states that we crave day and night, but never seem to get. So what we'll do to lay the tracks in our mind of generosity of Dharma and of being able to share something for once in our lives. We're so used to being miserly. We're so used to being greedy with good things. But tonight, let's lay the tracks, the imprints within our mind to share and to give the most incredible gift that we've ever received. And that's the exact steps that are necessary to get everything that we want and how to get rid of everything that we don't want. So what we're going to do is we're going to imagine now that we invite all sentient beings here to be our guest. And I'm going to recite something from the King of Prayers, the prayer, the Samantabhadra dedication, the prayer of noble conduct, it's called, the Sanchu Molam. And I'm going to recite a verse that many teachers recite before they teach, while imagining that all sentient beings are being brought here, all hell beings, all hungry ghosts, all animal, all human, all demigods, all gods, all beings are being brought here. And they're hearing exactly what they need to hear to evolve to the state of happiness, the highest happiness achievable, to evolve to a state where there's never suffering again. So we imagine that all of these beings are being brought here to hear this teaching, being brought here to experience the merit field that we're going to visualize. And they're being brought here to be able to be taught in their own individual aptitudes, because this is something that Buddha can do because of being omniscient. So we one day will become Buddha. We will become the reliable guide, reliable because we'll know what each and every single sentient being needs. And we'll be able to express to them exactly what they need to get closer to seeing emptiness and realizing it as a bodhisattva. So we're able to speak in that aptitude in their own individual language. So we're imagining that our speech is like that of the Buddhas, and our ability to emanate bodies and go find all of these sentient beings and bring them here is like that of a Buddha. Go to each and every place that sentient being is, because the Buddha's mind is able to observe all phenomena simultaneously, conventional and ultimate truth. So the Buddha is able to get to all of these sentient beings, whether the sentient beings have the karma and the conditions to be able to be helped is another situation altogether. But we're imagining that all of the beings that we're calling here, all of the beings that we're asking to join us in this feast, this nectar of logic and reasoning, we're inviting them all here to be with us. All hell, hungry ghost, animal, human, demigods, and gods. Imagine it that they're all being brought here by you because you have this ability to emanate to all of them, to speak to all of them, to help all of them, to love all of them, to be wise to all of them, to teach them all how to be kind to themselves in an intelligent way, as opposed to the self-cherishing way that we think is kind to ourselves. So in the language of the gods, nagas, and yaksas, in the language of demons and of humans too, and however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. Laike dan le dan no jinke dribun da dami ki nan dan droa gunji drananji tsampa tanche ke du daji chuten. So now get into the 7-point Vairocana posture, which is inspiring for all of these beings. And they imagine they all get into the 7-point Vairocana posture, the most conducive posture to being able to have all of the blood flow properly within your body, and the winds and the channels and everything is aligned in a way that allows our mind to move as freely as possible, and our mind to be able to be in the clearest way that it can be in terms of physical support. So we get into the 7-point Vairocana posture that's inspiring to beings, that's conducive for our attainment of the various levels of concentration that we will need to achieve in order to see the nature of reality. And I've given teachings many times on the 7-point Vairocana posture. You can look them up on our Buddhist Center YouTube page or any of the other applications that you're on. You'll find a teaching on the 7-point Vairocana posture. So we get into this 7-point Vairocana posture, and we're going to just for one moment, maybe 10 rounds of breath, just to get into a more calm state, into a more realistic state, into a place where we can invite the entire merit field here, and a place where we can hear this magnificent Dharma, this pure Dharma that's been passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni through the Nalanda tradition, through the Tibetan tradition, that lands in our lap and is spoon-fed to us, really spoon-fed to us. But even though it's spoon-fed, there's quite a bit of information that we need to know to really make our mind change, to really, really make it change. There's a lot of tricks and techniques and fads out there that folks will sell you on and tell you that in a month you can make your mind behave the way that you would like it to. But it takes years of concerted effort and real path and real specific stages for you to have an honest kind of set of discoveries that you can say are stable. So I encourage you, all of you, never to be satisfied with partial instructions, and allow your mind to get better and better and more intelligent and clearer and brighter and calmer through understanding what the kind of signs of it happening are through your studies. If you don't have the wisdom arisen from learning, or if you've just learned from a tiny little manual, or you've gone to a tiny little few teachings, then you don't have anything to really analyze. You've got a couple little instructions that fall flat on their face after 6 months or so. But if you have graduated stages that you can practice, if you have an actual path that's been presented by a being who's engaged in that pathway themselves, whose teachers have engaged in that pathway, and their teachers and their teachers and their teachers, and eventually you land on Buddha Shakyamuni. This is the kind of pathway that you can say, you can have an honest appraisal of yourself by looking at the mirror of the Dharma, which are the books, which are the texts, which are the pronouncements of Lord Buddha that we can have passed down through these instructions of the Kanjur and Tanjur, and then the oral tradition through our teachers. We gather this information and we have it and we use it like a mirror to see how our mind is really behaving, to see if we're really transforming, to see if the teachings that we're going to are having a benefit that's increasing our maturity. Is it making our mind mature more and more year after year after year? Or did we mature really quickly for 2 months and then sit stagnant for months and months and years and years and years? And I have seen in my almost 30 years of being around the Dharma and participating to the best of my ability, a lot of folks who say that this thing is very simple and follow some very simple instructions. And then when those simple things don't work against the complex problem of our mind, they feel that the instructions don't work, or they lose faith in the Dharma. And it's because they haven't actually looked at what the 3 highest higher trainings are, haven't looked at the Vinaya basket, the Sutra basket, and the Abhidharma basket, haven't looked at the Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, Chittamatra, and Madhyamaka tenet systems. They may have not even known there was more to it. They wouldn't maybe even have known what to cut and rub. And the Buddha said, don't even call yourself my student until you've cut and rubbed the teachings. So this is something that I really want to always reinforce in the teachings. And I'm hoping that all beings hear this. And the high bodhisattvas that are here already know this. But it's something that's so important. And I've just seen all too many times the oversimplification of the Dharma and then not getting at the object of negation. What does that mean? Getting at what you need to get rid of out of your mind in order to stop seeing suffering, in order to stop experience suffering, in order to stop seeing things incorrectly. There's a lot of stuff you have to remove from your mind that require what's called its opposite to be forced, it to be forced out with. We have to force anger out with patience and love. We have to force ignorance out with wisdom. We have to force attachment out with wisdom and with understanding and purity. We have to force the grasping at permanence out with the understanding that things are impermanent, that all composite things are impermanent. We have to force the idea that dirty things are clean out of our mind by understanding that dirty things are dirty. And this is what we do with our minds with Buddhism. It's an active engagement that's waging war against the enemy of the afflictions of our mind. It's an active. We are supposed to be, as Buddhists, being conscientious throughout our day. Okay, this is what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. I'm walking. Now I'm driving. And having a spy in our mind, seeing if what we told our mind to do is actually happening. We're walking, we're talking. Okay, do I have attachment? Am I being mean? Am I engaging in non-virtue? Am I doing this or am I doing that? If we haven't learned what we're not supposed to do or what the antidote is to things when they arise, then we won't know what to do with our minds when they start to hit a wall, when they start to crash into the afflictions, when we start to become overwhelmed with anger. If we don't have the wisdom arisen from learning to know what the antidote for anger is, and we don't have a spy in our mind paying attention to what's going on in our mind, and we told our minds at some point that anger is poisonous, we're supposed to remember that. And if we're not spying on our mind to see if anger is starting to arise, we could just be getting poisoned and poisoned and poisoned. And then the poison becomes more poisonous. The anger becomes higher and higher and higher, like a flame, like putting gasoline of inappropriate attention on all of these things that we dive into. So it's so important for us to have studies that can support us when we have these things going on so that we can say, hey, I heard that if remain like a piece of wood, you're about to freak out. Shanti Deva says if you're about to freak out and you're about to be out of control with your speech or with your body, just remain like a piece of wood. Give yourself a window of time for your mind to be realistic. Now you see that there's something arising in it. How will you know what to do? You can only stay like a piece of wood so long if you're not taming something. The wood's going to say, I got to do something. So while you're like a piece of wood, you need to have something to do. If you don't have anything to do, you'll just blow up or run towards the thing you're attached to. So that remaining like a piece of wood comment that Shanti Deva makes about being conscientious and having mindfulness and introspection isn't just saying like disassociate. It's giving yourself enough space then to say, there's hatred arising in my mind, which can destroy root virtues. There's attachment arising in my mind. Where is that coming from? Inappropriate attention. Why? I'm seeing something as pleasant that doesn't have that quality really inherently in it. And that little space of woodiness allows us to be realistic with our reactions. And the only way we're going to know how to do all of these games that we're playing to mature with, all of these kindergarten blocks and toys that the Buddhas hand us because our minds are so warped and distorted. We don't have all of these little tools and all of these techniques and the understandings of the ripening and liberating paths. We will not know what to do with our mind. And it doesn't matter if we know how to breathe in and out really well. We won't know what the antidote for anger is. We won't know what the antidote for real discursiveness is. We won't know what the antidote for attachment is. We won't know what the antidote to ignorance is, delusion is. We won't know the antidote to the reifying view of the perishing aggregates and the viewing wrong views as extreme, as supreme. We won't know how to get rid of these things because we won't even see that we have them. And we'll walk around thinking that we're taking refuge. And the Buddha said, don't call yourself my student unless you cut and rub my teachings. So a lot of us love the label, I'm a Buddhist, and we've read like you know, like one of these, and then we say, oh yeah, we're definitely a Buddhist, but we haven't even like followed through with what the Buddha asked us to do, because the Buddha taught to scope. The Buddha didn't teach everybody exactly the same thing, but there was a final view that the Buddha taught at the second turning of the wheel of Dharma. And we have to see if our view of emptiness tallies with the second turning of the wheel of Dharma. Does our understanding of what we need to renounce and our understanding of the 12 links and so forth tally with what the Buddha talked about in the Four Noble Truths? Does our Buddha nature understanding tally with the Buddha, what the Buddha taught at the third turning of the wheel of Dharma, Sutra Unraveling Thought? Does it tally? Are we able to differentiate what we need to? Can we add the emptiness that's missing from the figurative teachings? And can we then add the hidden part of the figurative conventional paths that are not presented by understanding some of the first and second turning of the wheel of Dharma teachings and adding them as ornaments to the understanding of emptiness in the second turning of the wheel of Dharma and the understanding of the Bodhisattva path that's hidden within that mantra, Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhisoha. So I hope all sentient beings are hearing this. Study, but study is meditation. Your studies should help your meditation. Your meditation should help your studies. Your analysis should help both, really. So we look at the wisdom arisen from hearing, analysis, and meditation. All of these things are like friends that have to be in the same room with one another in order to really, really ripen. And you see that you can hear better, you know, when you've, you know, began to analyze and become to meditate and utilize the concentration skills more. You can hear better. When you begin to meditate and start to, you know, go through the stages of shamatha, the faults of the three pots will be less present. And then if you do that, then your analysis will be better because you'll have more to analyze. So it's so important to make sure that you're trying to utilize all the components of the Buddha's path. You're hearing information, you're analyzing it, saying, does that make any sense? Does this make sense? Does that make sense? Okay, that. How would this work? What's the cause and effect with that? Oh, that sounds like that would produce that result. And then you start to actually meditate on it. We need all of these things to work in harmony with one another. And then when your meditation becomes too sophomoric because you don't have enough of your studies, you haven't analyzed enough because you haven't learned enough. Now it's time to learn more so that your meditation can become more advanced. So it's so important to do it in this manner. So now we're going to take 10 breaths. I know I said that about 15 minutes ago, but I think it was just so important for us to know what we're aiming at. We're calming our minds down so that we can then hear these teachings in the cleanest way and not miss anything that we're supposed to be hearing. So this is really, this part is so important to gather in this information and then say, does what that person was saying making any sense? Does what his teacher said make sense? Does this tally with what the Dalai Lama says? Does this tally with what Buddha Shakyamuni says and the Nalanda Master says? This is what we should be doing every time that we're at a teaching. We should listen to the teaching with an open mind, really soak it in, and then say, okay, have intelligence and say, does that make sense? Is what they're saying correct or not? Does that tally with this? Does that tally with that? And if it does, and then we can really analyze it well, put it into our practice and meditate. So now we're going to do 10 rounds of breathing. So just imagine that you and all sentient beings are in the 7-point Vairocana posture. We're going to breathe in, filling our lungs and diaphragm all the way to the top. And normally when you think you're taking a deep breath, a lot of people actually make the stomach go inward. You're like, actually, we're doing differently than that. We're going to, when we breathe in through our nose, in the 7-point Vairocana posture, we're breathing in through our nose. We're filling our lungs and our diaphragm, and we're making our stomach, our tummy go all the way out so that we can get as much oxygen into our body as possible. And then we're deflating it as much as possible. So when we're breathing in and out, we're trying to breathe in to bring all as much oxygen into our body, making our mind more clear as possible, and then breathing out and getting rid of all of that oxygen. And we're making sure that we're doing it in a very even fashion so that we're not getting dizzy or lightheaded or feeling like we're drowning because we're breathing in too slow. We're doing this in a very natural fashion. like we would normally breathe when we're not thinking about it. Now, I'm telling you to think about the breath, so that's hard. But what we're really just trying to get to the point of is breathing in, focusing on just breathing in, coming in, filling the lungs and diaphragm, almost like a all the way to the top, and then breathing out and exhaling all the way to the end and counting 1. And then doing the same thing, counting 2, and doing it again and counting 3. So we're going to just do 10 rounds of breath just to get to a more realistic place. I'll give everyone a heads up. You can hold me to this. And then we're going to visualize the merit field, recite some prayers, and then we'll get into the foundation of all good qualities. So if everybody can get into the 7-point Vairakana posture, breathing in all the way to the top, allowing your stomach to go out, filling as much as possible, and then exhaling, your stomach goes in, and counting 1 and doing 10 rounds of that. We sometimes add other visualizations. Tonight, we're not going to do that. We're so fortunate that Buddha Shakyamuni came to this world 2,600 years ago to teach us how to get rid of suffering and have the most perfect happiness possible. We have the exact guidebook right in our hands to know exactly how to achieve the state that Buddha Shakyamuni achieved. Now imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni is in the space in front of you, and the merit field begins to fill in the space in front of you. Imagine all of the holy beings, all of those lamas who've affected you, you consider enlightened beings. Imagining His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the wish-fulfilling jewel in our world, is on a Vajra throne right in the space in front of you with Buddha Shakyamuni, Chenrezig Buddha and Buddha Shakyamuni, Chenrezig Buddha in our world right now, manifesting as His Holiness the Dalai Lama. We're so fortunate to have him in our world. Imagining Khensa Geshe Wandak, imagining Demalocha Rinpoche, imagining Geshe Lobsang Gompo Rinpoche, and imagining Demalocha Rinpoche, Khensa Lobsang Gyatso Rinpoche, imagining Geshe Dorje Damdula, Umzala Geshe Aga, Jeffrey Hopkins, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, all of these beings you consider holy beings. Imagine them in the space in front of you. All the beings of the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya and Asanga, where we have the incredible instruction on the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, and all of the instructions on grounds and paths, and all of these things we're going to need to know to become a Buddha. And we're so fortunate that Buddha passed them down through this lineage that gets to us, called the extensive deeds lineage, from Asanga, then from Maitreya to Asanga, and then Basu Bandhu, his half-brother. So fortunate that we know these names, and Dignaga and Dharmakirti and Vimuktasena and Haribhadra and Shakyaprabha and Gunaprabha, Lama Salimpa and Lord Atisha and Drone Tompa, imagining right in the space in front of us. Now imagining the beings of the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri, Arya Nagarjuna, and Buddha Palita, Arya Deva, Chandrakirti, Shanti Deva, Baba Vega, Chandrashita, Kamala Shila. Again, Lama Salimpa, Lord Atisha, Drone Tompa, all here right in the space in front of us. We will need all of this information. We will need the information from the lineage of the extensive deeds on the grounds and paths and so forth. We will need the information from the profound view lineage on the final view of emptiness, the Madhyamaka Prasangika view of emptiness that Nagarjuna was so kind to teach us about, the Mulya Madhyamika Karika. The root wisdom texts. We're so fortunate. The beings of the lineage of blessings passed down from Vajradhara. 2. Saraha, Matripa, Tilopa, Naropa, Lotsawa, Marpa, Jitsu Milarepa, Jagan Popa, all of these holy beings shows the nature of our mind. Jay Rinpoche Lama Tsongkhapa said that there's no emptiness other than the emptiness that Milarepa has taught about the emptiness of our mind. There's nothing more to understand. We're so fortunate these teachings are in our world for us to understand. And if we have the basis and the foundation of the tenet systems, we can very clearly and easily read those poems, those songs by Milarepa, and know exactly what he's talking about. If we don't know what the tenets mean and we don't know what the Madhyamaka view of emptiness is, we may think that the songs of Milarepa mean just to make our minds like space, just like Hashan. And Kamala Shila came to negate that view. Now imagine that Dron Tompa is passing down the Lamrim lineage to all the 3 old Kadampa lineages. Those 3 Lamrim lineages, imagining the holy beings of the Nyingma lineage, Padmasambhava, Lonchemba, Mipam, all these holy beings that have come into our world to teach us the view of the nature of the mind, the Dzogchen view, all the holy beings of the Sakya tradition, Sakya Konganipo, Sakya Pandita, Sakya Randawa, all of these holy beings who have come to elucidate the Madhyamaka view in this very, very illustrious teaching on valid cognition that makes us have to question the way that we see everything. In the beings of the Karmapa, the Kaju tradition, these holy Karmapas, Jagan Popa, who came to show us this nature of our mind, the Mahamudra teachings, so that we clearly understand them. And the 8th and 9th Karmapas, reinforcing the idea that we'll learn about in the Jeffrey Hopkins series from John Powers, that one must understand the Madhyamaka Prasangika view in order to understand Mahamudra. And Lama Tsongkhapa, the Galupa school. Lama Tsongkhapa, imagining there in the space in front of us, Lama Tsongkhapa was able to take all the 3 old Kadampa lineages and bring them all into one very, very concise practice. All of the lineage of all of these very incredible lineages. He had teachers from all of the incredible lineages, and he was able to make it into one precious path, into reliance upon the great books, and reliance upon Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, and reliance upon the Abhisama Alamkara. We have this text called the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment that Khyentse Geshe Wandak Rinpoche taught us for so many years. And if you know what's in the Lamrim Chemo, then you know how to become a Buddha in the Sutra tradition. And you know how to practice then what's in the Ngarim Chemo, the Great Treatise on the Stages of the Tantric Path. If you don't know what's in the Lamrim Chemo, you will not be able to understand how to achieve the complete realizations in the Sutra path, and will not have the foundation for the Tantric path. You will not have that foundation of the perfection vehicle that's necessary for the Tantric path. And all of these stages are found in all the lineages of Tibetan Buddhism. When we see the Milarepa's teachings, we find the Lamrim teachings so clear, so clearly presented. We have to go through the preliminary practices and understand the teaching shared in common with beings of small, medium, and great capacity and the perfection vehicle, and then be able to move on to the tantric vehicle. We must have those flawless ethics that Lama Tsongkhapa talks about in order to really realize the higher views of Dzogchen and Mahamudra. We must have these foundational practices. If we don't, it's called self-deception. It's called fooling ourselves and creating a new samsara, creating a new reality that's more fun. It's like a phase. It's like being a chameleon. It's like taking on a different form of perception that is just still within grasping at true existence, still within self-cherishing attitude. And if there is grasping, you don't have the view. And if you don't have the view, you will circle in samsara over and over and over again. And our goal is to no longer circle in samsara, because we agreed at the beginning of class, we don't like suffering. And that's the only thing you get in samsara. You don't have any other options. Now we imagine those holy beings like Panchen Sonandrapa, Jayan Sheba, Gonja Jimmy Wambo, Janjan Ruby Dorje, Purbajo, Jetsumpa, all of these, 7th Dalai Lama, all the holy beings right there in the space in front of us. All of these teachers who will pass down these things that we will need to know, and have passed down these things that we need to know in order for us to transform into Buddhas. Full stop. Nothing short. We shouldn't try to shoot for anything short of perfect happiness and complete freedom from suffering. Why would we? Why would we shortchange ourselves? We deserve better than that. We're so fortunate these beings are with us. Highest Yoga Tantra deities, Performance Tantra deity, Action Tantra deities, all of the 35 Buddhas, all of these Buddhas are in the space in front of you, all the protector deities. There's deities who have said, I will make it these Aryas, superior beings, who've said, I will take it upon my task to protect those beings who are Dharma practitioners, to help them and to protect the Dharma so that it stays in this world. And we know that we currently have the Dharma in our lives right now, and it's in dependence upon this protection that we're receiving that it's partly in dependence upon one of the conditions that is present is this protection that we can't see, we don't know, but by having this faith, this protection comes to us because we've created a condition to be protected, if that makes sense. So we're fortunate to have these beings, and we imagine that our spiritual family is in the space in front of us, and now we'll recite the Heart Sutra. And the Heart Sutra is the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, where the Buddha explicitly taught the emptiness that we were all going to need to understand. Emptiness meaning empty of independence. All phenomena are empty of independence, meaning all phenomena are dependent. All the phenomena are dependent arising. So when we see this word emptiness, we think nothing. And all it means is that nothing is independent because it dependently originates. But we hear empty, we think nothing. And the first question that Geshe Dorje Damdu asks, if you want to study emptiness, is, do things exist? If the answer is yes, then we can move on from there. Because emptiness does not negate existence. It negates a mode of existence. And that's inherent existence. And inherent existence and existence are not the same thing. Inherent existence doesn't exist, but things exist, they just don't inherently exist. So we have to sort that puzzle out. And there's something about the way we're perceiving everything, including ourselves, that's wrong. And that's that we're clinging to it, ourselves and everything around us, as having a part, having something there right within it that is an inherent existence that makes it this or that, makes me inherently. And we have to undo that with still leaving a me and leaving a chair somehow, because Buddha didn't teach nihilism. So we have to undo something about the way I perceive that chair without losing the chair. We have to be able to see that I could lose that chair and have that chair. And losing that chair doesn't mean losing its existence. It means losing what I think my imputation truly is, sitting over there. My imputation of chair is truly inherently sitting over there, just like my imputation of Jeff is truly inherently sitting over here. I'm saying imputation because it's a name. So Prasangika is saying that this just merely a name you're putting on a collection that doesn't have the nessness that you really think that it does. And as soon as you think it has that nessness, you give it all kinds of value that makes you go crazy. Basically. And you're going crazy all the time because the way things appear to you is wrong. And I think that anyone would agree. What is somebody who's gone crazy? What's going on? Well, things are appearing to them in a way that's not reality. That's what's happening to us at all times. Things are appearing to us as inherently existent, but that's not reality. They're just dependent arisings. And if we can say that, if we can say they're not inherently existent, they're dependent arisings, then we can see what this emptiness is all about. And if we can see this dependent arising, then we can see that our mind, because it is a dependent arising, is empty of inherent existence and isn't stuck in imperfection. All of these things are the tools that allow us to understand how we could evolve into a Buddha. So we understand this nature of reality the Buddha's presented little by little by little. It seems like sounds good that things dependently originate, depending on causes, conditions, wholes, and parts, and my naming them. Yeah, that sounds like an easy concept to come up with, but you have to arrive at the object of negation and negate it to really see how things are abiding, to get to the point where you say, oh, things aren't objectively existing right within the object. They're subjectively existent. And what that means is a long course of study that I all really hope that you engage in, because every year, the more you know about this thing that's called the nature of reality, the more you know about the object of negation, inherent existence, the more you know that the designated object does not exist within the basis of designation the way that we think that it does, and we think that it is established there. The more that you know about it, the more you undo the knots that are in your mind that make these states of unease all we know. And if we're abiding in a state that's only able to perceive things that are around us incorrectly, then there's going to be a state of mind that's unpleasant. Geshe-la, Tashle, so nice to see you. So we're abiding constantly in a state that doesn't tally with reality. So our mind can't possibly be at ease. We're looking at things, we're apprehending them as inherently existent. Our consciousness, our eyes are seeing these things as inherently existent. And little do we know, there's just causes and conditions and wholes and parts that don't have anything from their own side that has a nessness to them that I'm describing. I'm merely making it all up in my mind and then going with it. And from there, from this grasping at inherent existence, but from this dadzin, we have this soshi mayimbi yichit. We have this inappropriate attention that occurs. And this inappropriate attention then turns into nyomon rapa, the coarse afflictions. And then we have attachment, because we've had this inappropriate attention that says, this is pleasant, this is unpleasant, this is a good feeling, this is a bad feeling. And then based on the good feeling, we become attached, and we have the coarse affliction of attachment. And because we think that the thing is unpleasant and we feel bad about it, we have aversion towards it and we push it away. And all of these things are occurring in our mind and coming from the master mind that's a liar, that's telling us that things inherently exist and that they're pleasant or unpleasant and we should run at them or run away from them. And then that running causes us to create sache le, contaminated karma. And that contaminated karma causes korwa, causes us to circle in cyclic existence over and over and over again. And this is why in Nagarjuna's Muya Madhyamika Karika in the Sawa Sherab, it says that ceasing of karma and afflictions is nirvana. Karma and afflictions arise from conceptuality, inappropriate attention, that arises from elaborations of self-grasping ignorance. Elaborations cease into emptiness. This is what we come to know in the second turning of the wheel of Dharma in the Heart Sutra. We're so fortunate to have this. So fortunate. And then the hidden teaching of the 5 paths, of the path of accumulation, Solang, the path of preparation, Jolang, the path of seeing, Tonglang, the path of meditation, Gonglang, and the path of no more learning, Melulang. And we find this in the Teata Om, Gate Gate, Parasangati, Bodhisoha. We're so fortunate to have this hidden teaching on the pathways that we will, as a bodhisattva, need to go through to get first aspiring bodhicitta, and then eventually see emptiness and get on the first bodhisattva ground, and then on the path of seeing, and then on the path of meditation, go through all 10 bodhisattva grounds to bodhisoha. This is what we're trying to achieve by being able to see that these paths are necessary, but the paths are empty of inherent existence. The action, agent, and object are all empty of inherent existence. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard once, the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice a profound Prajaparamita should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharma, no mind conscious dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times by means of Prajaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way. Teata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that Samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son or noble family. Thus it is, O son or noble family. Thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Ngala jubene jodamba nengushe de junga idu do jendru baba lama yibu shenzi nison gandro so la shatzelo agasamara jasandra rasamen agas. Agasamara jasandra rasamara veteata ongate kate parakate parasangate budizo papa concho sanji gaye teme doji she doji meba doji shewa doji dragi baji mete vije danji shedin gorie soha gerinda jaji shewa dan midun vejan dandra wadan tumba dunjin rumbon zonjo joji daji de janden da de le show. Final offering. My broken book. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds, knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain. The teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Sanje jadan zaji janan la janjo badu danyi jazu ji dagi jushe ji pezonan ji dola benje sanje jubasho sanje jadan zaji janan la janjo badu danyi jazu ji dagi jushe ji pezonan ji dola benje sanje jubasho sanje jadan zaji janan la Janju badu danyi jasu ji dagi jushe ji pezonan ji jola benji sanye dubajo. If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. That's from Sachen Kunga Nimpos, parting from the 4 attachments. Hey, everybody. Hope you're all well. I hope everybody who can get Dalai Lama's tickets can get them and see the wish-fulfilling jewel, His Holiness. Geshe-la, we really want tickets. Hopefully they'll be on sale soon. And Lori's never been able to see His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And after the 2 brain surgeries that she's had and everything she's gone through this year, I really want to make it possible for her to get as close to His Holiness as we can. So anybody who can help with that, that would be fantastic.
It's gonna happen. It's
yes.
gonna happen.
Yes.
It
yes.
will.
So yeah, so tonight we've been going through The Source of All My Good by Lama Tsongkhapa and looking at Pabunka Rinpoche's little short commentary on it that goes over the kind of 4 categories that we need to pay attention to in this text. The first category he says we need to pay attention to is how to find a teacher, exactly what we should do, how exactly to find the teacher, what kind of teacher, et cetera, et cetera. And we find in Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, relying on the spiritual guide in the first chapter on how to lead students through the actual instructions once the Lam Rim actually starts. So Pabunka says the first category, which is the first stanza, is the very root of the path, the teacher, Shenyen Densu. And it says, the source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. And again, as we've observed before, we look at the Mahayana Sutra Alamkara, the Dodijen, and the 10 qualities of the spiritual teacher, and the Tantra requested by Sabahu, and all those excellent qualities that Atisha confirms it and says that you can have an 8th of. You should at least be looking for teachers with these qualities. And then Tsongkhapa says they, really should have the quality of ethics and really knowledgeable and not wanting to cheat you, someone who's kind, somebody who wants to get you information that will help you get out of samsara and become a Buddha, that doesn't have any other alternative kind of ways or is trying to get at something else. And that's what I feel so good that we've done here at Buddhist Center, is we've been able to just keep the teachings going and not have to think about any of the financial stuff. Just make sure that the Dharma is available to those who want to hear it, and make sure that the Lam Rim teachings that Geshe Lobsang Gompo Rinpoche and Khenser Geshe Wandak Rinpoche was so kind to give it to us, and now Umzala Geshe Aga is being so kind to present us with, and Khenser Lobsang Gyatso came and gave teachings. Was so kind to give to us. Goa Compson's been so kind to us. And we're so fortunate to have these teachers. And these are the kind of teachers Lama Tsongkhapa is talking about relying upon. Then the next category is how to train your mind once you've gotten a teacher. And this would be how to train in the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. It first starts, we look at the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. Lama Tsongkhapa, goes through the life of leisure and opportunity and then shows us the 3 kind of an overview of the teachings for beings of 3 capacities, the Jipo Sun Lanji Rimba. We see this overview right after the leisure and opportunity. And then Lama Tsongkhapa presents us with the actuality of our death and impermanence. So you see he's being very skilled to influence us to say, hey, we have this good basis, and we really should do something with it. Here are the things we could do with it, and we better hurry up because we're going to die. So how you train your mind once you've taken a Lama is training in the teachings for beings of 3 capacities, or the teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity, teachings shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and the teachings for beings of great capacity. Lord Atisha in The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment says, understand there are teachings for beings of 3 capacities, small, medium, and great. I shall write clearly to identify their individual characteristics. So we can actually find, looking at the different stanzas that define small, medium, and great scope practitioners in the Lamp, we can apply them to these stanzas. And we can see that once we start to get involved with, okay, now we're involved with the small scope. So what does Lord Atisha have to say about the small scope? It says, know that those who by whatever means seek for themselves no more than the pleasures of cyclic existence are persons of least capacity. So someone who's just trying to get the best they can out of cyclic existence and get the best position you can within cyclic existence. To have the best position you can in cyclic existence, but here there's a very specific motivation also, and that's to be able to continue to practice if it's a teaching that is shared in common with beings of small capacity. You're doing this in order to have an ideal basis to practice in the future. So a person who is only of small scope, we would say all they want is this higher realm. But if someone is doing it in common with small scope, they're doing it so that if you don't get liberation or Buddhahood, an abiding nirvana or a non-abiding nirvana in this life, you'll be set up in your next life to kind of pick up where you left off. So this life of leisure and opportunity you have now if you don't get your goals done in this life, you're going to need it again. So this is an important aspect to this to understand. When we look at small capacity, we think it's so small, but it's the foundation that's necessary to be the building blocks to build the medium scope on, and the medium scope are the building blocks in which the great scope can be built on. So it's important to understand this, and I think that we've talked about this a lot. So what does Tsongkhapa say in this poem? Once you've found a Lama, what do you do? Bless me first to realize the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. Again, how do I take its essence? By engaging in the practices, the teachings for beings of three capacities, by engaging in the three principal paths of renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, and then eventually practicing the two stages of highest yoga tantra of generation and completion, in dependence upon the foundation of the small, medium, and great scope perfection vehicle great scope that I've practiced. Then one can engage in those final completion stages in dependence upon that. But one will have to have this Lama that they see as inseparable from the deity in order to practice highest yoga tantra. So we see, to practice highest yoga tantra, you need the small scope. And it's just inarguable that these are the preliminary building blocks on which you come to realize things. You take its essence night and day by building, not by jumping over the things that you need to try to do fancy things you're not capable of, not to deceive yourself, by looking honestly, giving your mind a good appraisal and saying, this is how my mind really works. These are the persons of three capacities. These are the practices that they do. I haven't realized this, and this. And to realize this, I need what's before it. So I better realize all the way back to where I haven't realized and start from there. And that's what the Lam Rim is about. And we have this life that's ever so valuable and hard to achieve. And we mentioned at the beginning of the teaching, there's so many causes and conditions that have to be in play for us to be a human that has access to these teachings, that can read and has a language that these teachings are in, etc., in such an extensive format that we have Tsongkhapa's Golden Rosary commentary on the Abhisamsankara. We have Tsongkhapa's commentary on the Mulya Madhyamika Karika, the Ocean of Reasoning. We have Tsongkhapa's commentary on the Madhyamika Avatara, illuminating the intent. We're so fortunate, really, in Leishi Nyingpo, the essence of eloquence, the differentiating all the mind-only views and so forth that are so hard to tackle without that book, so hard to tackle that third turning of the wheel of Dharma. And the Leishi Nyingpo, the essence of eloquence, clarifies it so much. We're so fortunate. These are just some of the books that we have in English. The way that we take the essence of this life is to understand what's in those books and practice from where we're at so that we can achieve the final goals those books talk about. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to call the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs, the many wrongs we drew, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. And we talked about this in the Gontang, the Jayan, Gontan, the Dembe Drome's text about impermanence, recalling impermanence, where we're trying to get to a point where we could have so much conscientiousness, mindfulness, and introspection that we every moment could leave a virtuous imprint. Every moment, every second. Imagine you hear a clock. Imagine if you were so skilled that you could every one of those ticks and even 64 moments within each tick know that you're so skilled that each of those moments you put a virtuous imprint. That when you look at the wheel of life, the 12 links of dependent origination, you know that you're planting those things which will eventually be purified with emptiness and be a cause for your form body. Really, it's really amazing when you think about, okay, I want to abandon non-virtue and engage in perfect virtue, the way it says in the Vinaya Sutra. Abandon evil, engage in perfect virtue, subdue your mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. I want to do this, and in the small scope, I want to do it so I have a good rebirth. But if I get really good at doing this in the beginning, then I can carry this forward into the medium and great scope, and it's like a time machine. It's like a jetpack. It's like getting on an airplane instead of riding a bicycle somewhere. because we're actually making each moment so powerful that when we get to the point that we're ready to practice Tantra and we're Bodhisattvas and we have this mind, we have this mental basis that's just incredible, and we're engaged Bodhisattvas, and we have this understanding of emptiness, and we start to become more and more fluent with the inferential valid cognition of emptiness, the Jepagsema. We become more and more aware of it to where the meaning generality, the donji, is finally getting smaller and smaller to the point where we can have a direct valid cognition, direct valid cognition of emptiness at the path of seeing. And this is how we do this, is to slowly make our minds more and more and more like a holy being so that we become holy beings. We know that everything arises from causes. So this is where the small scope section ends. And we would say teaching shared in common with beings of small capacity, because our goal as Mahayana practitioners is to become a Buddha. But we see that these instructions on the 10 non-virtues and of karma and refuge and relying on a teacher and leisure and opportunity and death and impermanence and how to purify with the 4 opponent powers are indispensable, and we will need them all the way through our paths, all the way through. If we make a mistake with a bodhisattva vow, we're going to need to know how to apply the 4 opponent powers that we find in the teachings for beings of small capacity. Get it? I think you do. Bless me to perceive. Now we get into the teachings for beings of medium capacity. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. This is what we're talking about. See how the small scope carries over. It says, grant me to ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrong of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Now the medium scope says, may these pure thoughts lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. What should I be doing? Well, in the small scope, I knew that I should be doing everything to get out of the lower realms. Now I've analyzed the higher realms and found that those are distasteful as well. And now what I should be doing is everything that I need to do to get out of samsara altogether, practicing day and night. And why is this possible? So I want to just read something tonight to you. I think I have it with me. I do. From Kamala Shila's Stages of Meditation. And it, I think, falls in line. This section in the medium scope is where we really talk about the 4 noble truths. And we talk about the truth of origin in an abbreviated way in terms of karma and afflictions, and then in an extended way in terms of the 12 links of dependent origination, the links of ignorance and conscious and karma and consciousness and name and form and the 6 sources and contact and feeling and craving and grasping and potential existence, and then birth, and then aging, death. We have all of these links that we learn about within here. But why does it matter? Why is our mind something that can mature? Why are states of happiness something that we can create, and states of suffering something that we can end? Well, these states of our mind are impermanent. We know that all impermanent things arise from causes. The Buddha's 4 seals, he says, all composite things are impermanent. All contaminated things are the nature of suffering. All phenomena are the nature of emptiness and selflessness. Transcending sorrow is peace. So the Buddha pointed at something that was important. That's the key to our success. And that's all composite things are impermanent. And all composite things have causes. Anything that's a result, a composite thing is both a cause and a result. And something that's a result must have a cause. So when we look at the result of happiness, we know it must have a cause. When we look at the result of suffering, we know that it must have a cause. When we look at being bound to cyclic existence, we know that it must have a cause. When we look at being unbound from cyclic existence, there's something that we need to remove. And the removing of it that process of removal must have a cause. So it's important that when we look at Om, He Dharma, He Tu Pravava, He Tum Tesham Tatagato, Yavada, Tesham Chayo Naroda, Ivam Vadi Maha, Shamana Ye Svaha. We look at the essence of dependent origination mantra. All phenomena arise from causes. The causes are taught by the Tathagata. The cessation of causes as well are taught by the great seer. This is very important. Because if phenomena arise from causes, what's going on with our mind that's the experiencer of everything that happens? Our mind is what becomes happy. Our mind is what becomes sad. So what is going on? Why does that matter? Why do all these things that Buddha has connected and is saying matter? Why do they matter? Because of the nature of our mind. What is the mind? Kamala Shila. It is not possible for omniscience to be produced without causes, because if it were, everything could always be omniscient. If things were produced without reliance on something else, they could exist without constraint. There would be no reason why everything could not be omniscient. Therefore, since all functional things arise only occasionally, they depend strictly on their causes. Omniscience, too, is rare because it does not occur at all times in all places, and everything cannot become omniscient. Therefore, it definitely depends on causes and conditions. So what can become omniscient? Something that's a knower. The mind is defined as that which is clear in knowing. Omniscience is knowing everything. So what could know everything? A knower. So what would be needed to know everything? If the mind is in the nature of clear light and unsullied, as it says in Dharmakirti's Pramanavartika Karika, it doesn't have this kind of place of stuckness in muddiness and dirtiness. So this mind is in the nature of just clear and knowing. What does this mean? It lights up and like a mirror reflects. So it lights an object up, the mind, lights up what we're knowing, lights it up to know it. You know, like for a chair over there, the mind is able to light it up and know, reflect. And there's a clarity there. There's a clarity there that allows it to see the object. And then there's a knowing part that once it's reflected and illuminated, it can know it. This clarity allows it to know it. So this knowing in our case is stifled. So we need to remove the things that are stifling our knowing of everything. And we know we didn't know the alphabet before. And then we got rid of the misknowing related to A, B, C, D, or ga, ka, ga, nga, whatever that was. We removed that ignorance. We've been removing ignorances our whole life. So we should be convinced we can remove ignorances. And if there's something very specifically that's making us misapprehend everything that is an ignorance, then we just merely have to figure out what it is and work on our minds enough to figure out how to remove that ignorance. And that ignorance comes in all kinds of layers. Ignorance that sees things as permanent that are impermanent. Ignorance that sees things that are suffering as happy. Ignorance that sees things as pure that are impure. Ignorance that sees things that has a self that don't have a self. There's all these ignorances that we have to get rid of. But I think you would agree if we can get rid of the ignorance related to the alphabet, we can get rid of the ignorance related to believing that things that are impermanent are permanent. We can get rid of that ignorance because things aren't permanent. It doesn't tally with reality. So as soon as the level of misknowing is gotten rid of, or the lack of clarity, depending on how you look at what ignorance is, as soon as that's removed, then you know you have the opposite, the mituncho of it. As long as you apply the opposite of the ignorance, the wisdom, then you can kick it out of the car of your mind. And the more ignorances you kick out of the car, you can go down the road and not have the ignorance and be an omniscient being. You can travel through your life, the road of life. Your life will be pure because you'll have the life of a Buddha, one who's woken up from the sleep of ignorance. And you can wake up from the sleep of ignorance because your mind dependently arises. What it knows dependently arises. Just make it know something that matters so your mind dependently arises into knowing correct information instead of wrong information. And the more correct information your mind knows, the closer you are to Buddhahood. That's the beauty of this. the more correctly you see that cherishing others is smarter than cherishing yourself, the closer you get to this idea of this switch of cherishing others more than yourself, the closer you get to a place that's perfect. And we all know that you can become a better person. So become the best person. And that's all Buddha did. He discovered how to become the best person. Tara discovered how she could become the best person. That's all. We can discover the same thing because we have this mind that depends on causes and conditions. And omniscience depends on causes and conditions. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. It has to be produced. The wisdom Dharmakaya has to be produced. The state of mind has to be produced. There have to be things removed. There's a process of removal. There's fruitional ripening paths, the Bodhisattva paths, the conventional paths, and then there's the liberating paths of seeing emptiness. All of these have to be combined to move our minds to the place of perfection. And that's what the goal is. And in the medium scope, the goal is to just achieve liberation, to achieve an abiding nirvana of a hearer, solitary realizer. This is the goal of the medium scope, but it's shared in common with the great scope because we won't know the suffering that other beings are having if we don't know our own suffering. If we don't clearly know what cyclic existence is, I won't be able to turn to you and know what your cyclic existence is. So the medium scope is shared in common with beings of great capacity because of the fact that it's indispensable. And next week, we'll talk about how seeing your own suffering makes you relate to others in a more realistic way and makes you actually able to not engage in evil. You can abandon evil by understanding your own suffering and its causes and understanding the 12 links and seeing that you're under the control of the afflictions, just like everyone else is under control. And if someone hits you with a bat, the person is no more responsible than the bat. And it's really only the anger that we should be blaming. And we should be able to see that the person isn't the anger, and that the bat isn't the person, and the bat isn't the anger. And this is what Shantideva came to teach us. And it's so, so precious. So in Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, when we get to the medium scope, it says this: those who seek peace for themselves alone, Hinayana, Pali tradition, individual liberation vehicle, whatever you would like to call it. Nagarjuna calls it Hinayana. So when you read Nagarjuna, if you want to know what he's referring to, this is what Nagarjuna is referring to. Those who seek peace for themselves alone, turning away from worldly pleasures and avoiding destructive actions, are said to be of middle capacity. So this is the root text for the Lam Rinpoche, and it says that abiling destructive actions. And then we say, grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful to recall what I should be doing. And before that, grant me to be ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs we do and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. And the medium scope practitioner realizes its independence upon the Vinaya basket and then the Sutra basket and the Abhidharma basket that are all like this together, that one is able to achieve an individual liberation and abiding nirvana. So we'll stop here. So we're at the medium scope, and we know that this lays the foundation for us to be able to have the mental basis, the semden. When we look at Panchen Sonandrapa's general meaning of perfection and how you get bodhicitta, you have to have a luden and semden. You have to have a mental and physical basis. And if you don't have renunciation, and you don't see the qualities of the Buddha, and you don't have all of these pre-realizations of the medium scope, you don't have the mental basis for the path of accumulation to occur, to have the aspiring musen to occur. You must have these foundational building blocks of the small scope and the medium scope in order for your mind to have the basis from which bodhicitta can arise. So it's just common sense. All phenomena arise from causes. The causes are taught by the Tathagata. The cessation of causes as well are taught by the great seer. All composite things are impermanent. All contaminated things are the nature of suffering. So what does that mean? If I engage in contaminated causes, I'll have suffering. If I engage in non-contaminated causes, I won't have suffering. How can I engage in non-contamination? Through seeing emptiness. Only way, the only non-contaminated form of happiness is that direct perception. That's how, by seeing emptiness directly. How do I get to that? Through the ripening paths of studying, abandoning non-virtue, and engaging in the virtues, and seeing the downfalls of cyclic existence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So clearly laid out. We've been spoon-fed by all of these incredible teachers, and we're so fortunate. And I really appreciate all of you for listening. And yeah, we'll end here. Thank you so much. I see my phone going off. Maybe the tickets are for sale. So let's dedicate. And if we miss the tickets because we dedicated, then at least we'll have carried forward something in our lives that is going to matter, because this is all we have. All we have are those moments where we're planting things in our minds. And if any dedication that's properly dedicated is like a drop of water that's put into the ocean, it's not extinguished until the entire ocean's extinguished. Likewise, any virtue that's properly dedicated that then goes into our mind stream doesn't go away until it becomes the cause for the Buddhahood that we all seek. So, concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. Who said that? The Buddha. The fundamental ground is scented by incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I've collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the wish-fulfilling jewel in our world. May he walk up to each and every one of us freely, because we've removed the obstacles in our mind to him being able to walk up to us freely. Chen Rezig Buddha has no problem with his knees. It's our problem that we have with our minds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All powerful Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. And a prayer of supplication to Namgyal Khenser Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, written by me. Homage to a complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khenser Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible, your pure body, speech, and mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music, purified by Om Ahom, Om Ahom, Om Ahom. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you, who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like a teacher who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. Teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineage flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears, that elucidating the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all your teachers passed away and understood the sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It's by teaching the truth of such that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. Sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so that we know who you really are. Thank you very much, everyone. And may Geshe Lobsang Gompo Rinpoche come back to help, and Jeffrey Hopkins come back to help, and Khensa Lobsang Gyatso come back to help, Demolocha Rinpoche, everybody come back and help, because I haven't realized emptiness or bodhicitta or renunciation, but I will. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care.